Damn.
Season 2, Episode 14. That means it's 2 converted touchdowns in the second season of the Hall of Fame show.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, how goes in Chicago?
Goes pretty well, but two converted touchdowns actually aren't something the Bears are used to. It's more likely 7 safeties. Or 4 field goals and a safety. It's about as well as the Bears offense does. But no, it's going pretty well. How about you?
Well, we've risen from the ash, literally. I don't know if you noticed or if you've known. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the island of St. Vincent had a volcano. And
yes, I did see that.
Yeah, I should send you some video over Facebook there and just show you some of the literal dust in the wind I was sort of looking at on Friday. I've never seen anything like it before. Very, very unique. We're still sweeping every day. Lots of ash. So today was Ash Wednesday.
I thought, the Canadians move Ash Wednesday like Thanksgiving? Good to know. Okay.
Harvest.
I will say, I'm glad that you're surviving that. Have you ever? I'm gonna go with something that we found on YouTube that we absolutely love, because I was watching one this week on Mount Vesuvius.
Mm-hmm.
Have you watched Puppet History at all?
No.
On YouTube?
I should. I've heard of it.
I highly recommend it. It's actually done by, we found out later, by a guy from the town I live in here in Illinois. But he has like a mini game show where he has one contestant's always the same. They have another contestant. And he just goes through like crazy things in history out of a puppet. And sometimes does popsicle stick picture reenactment of what's going on, and then asks questions as to how did these people react to this. They're really, really funny, and they're really, really educational. And if you have like 20 minutes to kill, I highly recommend you watching them. So I just watched we watched one of Mount Vesuvius this week. So yeah, it made me think of it with the volcano. So.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. We're in the one of the few islands here that I don't want to say is hurricane-free, because generally it is, but apparently not volcanic ash-free. There you go. So we've got it's a light week, but now that we have usual segments, your good, the bad, and the ugly of sports, and my elevator up, elevator down. We've got regular things, and I think with Elevator Up, I just wanted to do a bit of a callback here. Some of the people I've talked about, I think I'm helping them. Since I named Lil Nas X Elevator Up, he went number 1. I think I had something to do with that.
Well, and since he went Elevator on Taylor Hall, he got traded to the Bruins and got a point in his first game.
Did he get a point, or was it just a plus-minus?
There's a point. He got an assist on the second goal.
Okay, so I'm certainly helping them. And Deshaun Watson got a lot more cases against him.
He had one dropped, but then another one added to make up for it. So
like I tell my dad in the stock market, because I don't play stocks, I broke even.
Mm-hmm.
But enough.
If you don't win, how you ever going to break even, right?
Yeah,
the words of the late great Tom Petty.
But yeah, no talk about Deshaun today.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to the Elevator Up.
But before I do that, I just want to comment on something from last week when we talked about the WWE Hall of Fame Legacy Wing, and we played the game. This is your cue to sort of do the song.
Does Evan know who this is?
Yes. Yes, and one of those people who you didn't know, which was all of them, was Ethel Johnson, and I wasn't that familiar with her really at all myself. She was listed as the first black woman pro wrestler. Now, as it turned out, right at that time, and as I mentioned before, I didn't watch the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony. Now, they didn't tell any of the people, it looks like, or the family thereof, because all those 10 people in the Legacy Wing are deceased. I don't know if they told any of them, but they definitely didn't tell the family of Ethel Johnson, whose daughter is still alive, and the granddaughter is still alive. Now, the granddaughter, who you can follow on Vergoat, I might have that wrong, and has about 50,000 followers, so a lot more than I've got, said pretty much said, you know, if you're going to induct my grandmother, at least use the right package. Now, they had a picture of Ethel, but when they cut to a video montage, it was from a woman named Sandy Parker. Now, Sandy Parker is also African American, but does not really resemble Ethel Johnson really at all. Much like you and I are white. I think when we finally hang out in Chicago, wherever that is, I don't think people are going to say it. So how long you've been brothers? Don't think that's going to happen.
That actually did happen to me once with one of my buddies. We were signing up for a ski race and had to give our birth dates. I'm born in January. He's born in February the same year. And the woman, after taking our birth dates and signing us in with different last names, asked if we were brothers. We looked at each other. We're like, yeah, we're twins. He just took a little bit longer. So.
Well, the thing also too, the fact that they used the wrong woman in the video portion. Ethel Johnson wrestled in the 50s. Sandy Parker wrestled in the 70s. So not only do you have the wrong black woman, you have the wrong era. Their two wrestling careers didn't even remotely overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't want to rip WWE too much because they do make an effort to try to be politically correct and try to... And I'm sort of like gaining a different perspective on this. I used to always think, and a lot of the black wrestlers they'll induct in these legacy wings really weren't that big names. But at the time, a wrestling promotion would just say, okay, well, we've got one. We don't really need another.
Yeah, right.
So I'm really sort of altering my perception on that, and that, you know, towards that. So nevertheless, they're trying to do the right thing, and this is not a company known for doing the right thing on anything. But I'm guessing they just did this goes back to what I've been saying before. They put such little effort into this, and I don't know how a company this size can't just assign a couple people and then let them know ahead of time so that they can dig through their vault and sort of do this. Anyway, the family was rightfully pissed. I retweeted an interview that they gave with a gentleman named Chris Fournier, who I'm hoping that I'm going to be talking to next week. He did a documentary on Ethel Johnson and her two sisters, who were the three pioneers of black women's wrestling. So I'm sort of looking forward to that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I'll listen.
Yeah. And that sort of ties in up with Elavator Up. I'm actually going to go to WrestleMania. I said to you I was not looking forward to watching this. For those who are tired of me talking about wrestling, fast forward 10 minutes. But I will just say, I guess when you have something that you have very low expectations, it can exceed it. And this wasn't the best WrestleMania, but I had virtually no expectations, so it exceeded it. One of those people was Latin hip-hop artist Bad Bunny, who wrestled.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can say a lot of things about the fact that a celebrity who never wrestled before, who doesn't, I shouldn't say in past tense, who doesn't look like someone who could kick anyone's ass, kick people's ass.
Yeah, the only place I know Bad Bunny from, honestly, or the first place I became exposed to him, was with Snoop Dogg in the Corona commercials.
Probably the same for me.
I was like, who is Bad Bunny? And I had to go look him up and figure it out. Yeah, I didn't realize when you said Bad Bunny was wrestling. I'm like, oh boy, it was bad, but it was good.
It was actually, well, it was 10 times better than it had any right to be when you've got a celebrity who, I hesitate to word non-athletic. He's not cut, that's for damn sure. Because if he was, then he might have shown that off. You can, I suppose, be smaller, not necessarily ripped, but be athletic. And long story short, he worked very hard, apparently, at the Performance Center in Orlando to look really good. He got a great reaction, so clearly the people in Tampa loved him. And he's more worthy for the celebrity wing than, well, pretty much almost everyone that they have, and I know you'll hate this, with the exception of Trump, because Trump rocked a WrestleMania buy rate, and he appeared on multiple shows, as did Bad Bunny.
I have no trouble with Trump being in the WWE Hall of Fame. That seems about the level at which he should have aspired to. So,
well, he aspired and won, and there we go. So Bad Bunny is
I know.
my elevator up.
Interesting.
That was
Cool.
that was my sound effect.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the sound effect. I wasn't sure it was coming. It's not often you talk about the elevator up for the celebrity wing of the WWE Hall of Fame. So I think that's a cool one.
This could be probably the only one that I'll ever do this for until next year, but who knows?
Probably.
Yes. Now, elevator down. Elevator down. That's my favorite sound effect of all time. I just have to point that out. That is just my most favorite thing. Is someone who's getting a lot of attention. We were going to talk about him anyway, and I don't want to make it come off like I'm really dumping on the guy. But Julian Edelman has retired, and the amount of Hall of Fame attention he's getting, and it's not necessarily, I don't think it's his fault. I think it stems from, I don't know who first wrote the article, but someone obviously very high profile, because I think it was following the last Patriots Super Bowl win, and they were trying to make a case for Edelman for the Hall of Fame, primarily based on the fact that he's second all-time to Jerry Rice in playoff receptions for a wide receiver. And he's got the moments, and he's done exceptionally well in postseason. I think stat-wise overall and performance overall, he's never gonna have that. He's not gonna get that Pro Bowl that he never got, and not gonna get an All-Pro. He's not gonna get to the 10,000 yard mark in all-purpose yards because he's not there either.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm begrudgingly saying elevator down because his career is over and the conversation is over. Nevertheless, it didn't stop a shit ton of people, myself included actually, from saying this guy is not a Hall of Famer. And I've never seen so much attention towards an individual that should not be in this conversation whatsoever. Am I wrong on this?
I think the fact that, all right, so let me preface it this way. I am a Patriots fan,
Mm-hmm.
and I do not believe Julian Edelman is a Hall of Famer. What I will say is that the insane level of vitriol towards him that came out after this announcement that he was somehow this absolutely ridiculously mediocre player is insane.
No, he's not mediocre at all. That's the thing. Edelman,
but that was that was a counter reaction.
Yes, you're right.
That was going on. That somehow Edelman was a 7th round draft pick who was a Super Bowl MVP and won three Super Bowls. Again, we've been through this before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on record saying I don't think Julian Edelman is a Hall of Famer. As a matter of fact, there's one of the Broncos writers tweeted out a whole bunch of Broncos should be in before Julian Edelman.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I tweeted out in response a whole bunch of Patriots players who I think should be in before Julian Edelman who were eligible. People added on the list, but people who weren't eligible yet, one of whom was Vince Wilfork, who won't be eligible till this year.
Mm-hmm.
But my list was John Morris, Gio Capelli, Houston Antoine, Bruce Armstrong, Stanley Morgan, Ben Coates, Drew Bledsoe, Wes Welker,
mm-hmm.
Willie McGinnis, Richard Seymour, Rodney Harrison, Logan Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
I think all those guys have better Hall of Fame cases. I'm not saying all those guys should be in. I'm just saying they have a better Hall of Fame case than Welker. However, I had a conversation with a Bears fan today
mm-hmm.
who is apoplectic over the fact that Calvin Johnson was the first ballot Hall of Famer and firmly believes that Julian Edelman is a Hall of Fame football player. I'm going to give you his argument, and you can reject it or whatever, but I thought it was at least interesting.
Okay.
And again, I don't agree with it, but it's at least worth bringing up.
Okay.
His argument was you can write the history of football without Megatron existing. Megatron's entire career had no impact on the NFL, ultimately, in his opinion. He played for a bunch of teams, And basically he said every stat that Megatron had was a garbage time stat because none of his games ever mattered. Julian Edelman, almost all of his games mattered. And without Julian Edelman, the Patriots don't win Super Bowl 51. They without that catch against Atlanta, they don't win that game. And he was the entire offense for both teams in the Super Bowl against the Rams a couple years ago. And rightly won Super Bowl MVP because, honestly, if you're going to give it to an offensive player from that Super Bowl, it had to be him because that should have been some defensive player. If there ever a Super Bowl, a 16-3 Super Bowl, that was the Super Bowl to give the MVP to a defensive player, except that no one really stood out there either. So his argument was that, and this goes back to Jack's argument as to why Calvin Johnson is the first ballot Hall of Famer over Reggie Wayne in particular. He thinks Torrey Hurt's a Hall of Famer. He doesn't think Reggie Wayne is a Hall of Famer at all. Is that in his mind, for him, a Hall of Famer is someone who was so dominant that, like, you just were like, oh my God, that's the best player in the field. Right? That was his whole thing with Calvin Johnson. When and I brought this up before, when they announced the nominees, they went to Charles Woodson and asked him about the three receivers who were finalists and which one he thought was most deserving. He said there's a reason only one of them is nicknamed Megatron. Right? Mm-hmm. So Megatron versus Minitron, right? Which is what the joke, sort of joke nickname that Julian Edelman had. Edelman was, I mean, largely, without Julian Edelman's actions in the Super Bowls, Brady has two fewer. I think he definitely loses I don't know if he loses that Rams game. The Rams are just awful that game, but he definitely loses the Falcons game. If you replace Wes Welker with Julian Edelman, multiple people pointed out they probably lose that Falcons game. And if you replace Edelman with Welker, they'd probably win that Rams game or that second Giants Super Bowl because Welker would have dropped that ball and Edelman would have caught. But here's the other argument. Again, the best argument. I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm playing the Patriots guy on this. How many games did Julian Edelman play in his career? Do you think? I know he's drafted back in 2010, 2011. Do you know how many games he actually played?
I don't know the exact amount. I can look that up. But I know in his first few years, he didn't play that much.
He had 85 games, ultimately, really, in his career. He made, like, a few cameos as a kick returner. I'm not counting those games. I mean, as an actual wide receiver in the game. He played 85 games in his career. He had 620 catches, which, if you do that per game, that's 7.5 catches per game, which extrapolated over 16-game season, is essentially averaging 116 catches a season. Again, we're having to have fun with numbers and trying to make the argument outside of the fact that he has no all-pros, he has nothing, right? In terms of all pros, all Pro Bowls, anything. Because his number one argument is that he is the second best receiver in the history of the postseason. That's his best argument. But the question is, and this comes back to, again, you and how you feel about the fact the postseason should matter for Baseball Hall of Fame, and why you think Bill Wagner has absolutely no business being there. When the lights were the brightest, Julian Edelman was always on.
Well, incidentally, you just segued perfectly into something that I was going to bring up. I messaged you today saying I've got another Hall of Fame idea.
Okay.
And last week, or was it the week before, you said we might as well just build them all.
Yeah, drive traffic. The infinite Halls of Fame means infinite traffic to the website.
I propose to you the pure playoff Hall of Fame, where only postseason accomplishments matter. Doesn't matter what you did in the regular season. Doesn't matter what you did in, like Ernie Banks, no chance. Ted Williams, no chance.
Calvin Johnson, no chance.
Calvin Johnson, no chance. Kurt Schilling could get into this one. Robert Horry can get into this one.
Yeah, Robert
And
Horry.
Julian Edelman could get into this
Adam
one.
Vinatieri.
Adam Vinatieri. That is my proposal. We put together
Jack Morris.
Yeah.
Is another one way.
Yes.
I'm just trying to think of all the really great. David Ortiz, of course.
Yeah,
just some of the great players in the postseason. Okay.
Obviously, Michael Jordan would be first ballot again, but we're eliminating.
You may have to do. You may have to do like what you did for the Vicious Athlete with Rocky Balboa and just start with Jordan. Well, maybe I think you have to put Russell in there too.
Well, yes, I could argue Russell over Jordan on something just like this.
Yeah, like Jordan, Russell. Who would you do for each sport? It'd be Jordan and Russell for basketball,
right?
For football, I mean, it has to be Brady.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
that shouldn't be that controversial.
No.
And
Bart Starr.
We're just talking playoff. Or Bart Starr, or I guess who's the guy for the Browns? I can't think of his name. Quarterback for the Otto Graham.
Otto Graham, yeah.
You make an Otto Graham argument or a Jim Brown argument, actually. For hockey.
Well, Gretzky, Rocket Richard, Wayne Gretzky from the Oilers dynasty. There's just so many. Like every original 60.
Messier.
Messier. Yeah, absolutely.
Bobby Orr again.
Bobby Orr.
Yeah, there are tons. Mike Bossy. Yeah, there's a ton. And baseball. I mean, just anyone who ever played from the Yankees from 1927 through 1955.
Yeah. Now, this one I may not put up for a vote. We might just sort of put this together as a group, and that's just going to be a transparent bit. But I thought about this. I've been thinking about this for a while. And again, it doesn't exist. It would just be the big four sports. So nothing that we're just going to really count on. Okay, well, this guy always wins on a major, be it for tennis or golf. Nah, I don't want to do that. Maybe down the road, but
interesting. I like the idea.
Yeah, because that also too, we could almost then create also the top coaches, because there are coaches who win. We see it all the time. How many coach of the years? And then you look back. Well, shit. They probably wish they could have got that vote back before the playoffs happened.
Yeah. Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm in.
Okay. Well, you were already in.
Okay, fair enough.
This. This is not one draft board you can refuse. But I was going to bring that up. I guess the counter though that's always going to be against Edelman. And I don't dispute anything that the person said to you in that conversation and everything. But in what scenario that will ever happen is Julian Edelman going to be the top 5 available players for this? What scenario will he be even the top 15 as a finalist? Even top 25 is going to be pretty goddamn hard because he's not even in the top 5 of the players who were retired this year. If Larry Fitzgerald retires this year, which could happen.
Which it looks like he's going to.
Yeah, so that's 5 right off the top of my head who's way ahead of him. And they're not all going to be first ballot. And that's Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Marquise Pouncey, Jason Witten, and then Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Frank Gore could retire.
I mean, yeah. All those guys are definitely ahead of him. But like I said, I don't think he's a Hall of Fame. He's going to be a first ballot Patriots Hall of Fame.
And he should be.
I mean, 3 of some of my absolute favorite Patriots players of all time, Teddy Bruschi and Troy Brown are 2 of my absolute favorite Patriots players of all time. Like, just heart and soul of the team, right? And neither of them are ever going to sniff the Hall of Fame. And I'm okay with that. Edelman is right there with them. I think Welker has a much better argument because he has, 4 or 5 Pro Bowls, right? And So that's that much different argument. That even though if you give me a choice of if healthy, and that's always a big deal with Edelman because he never played a 16-game season in his career. But if healthy, which one would I take? I would take Edelman every time over Welker. But that doesn't mean that when it comes to what we do in terms of who's making what Hall of Fame. I mean, think of the Rock Hall, how we feel about the Rock Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just so many. There's so many bands or people who we think should be in that aren't, and ones that we don't think should be in who are. So I don't think that. I just don't think. I think just you're a team great. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what I guess I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with being a team.
No, God, no. Especially when it's done as well as the Patriots.
Yeah. Okay. Like, yeah. You can't write the history of the Patriots without Julian Edelman. So, but just by the way, I just went back and looked through the NFL top 100 players list that they've done on NFL Network for the last decade or so. It's basically all of Edelman's career. How many times in those years do you think he appeared on the top 100 players in the NFL list? And what do you think he topped by that as a number? What was his highest ranking?
468.
And that was close. 471.
All right. To be fair, I wrote a bit on Edelman today, so I saw. I know already. Remember that was the 4. The 68 was a guess. I didn't look at the ranks.
Yep. Yeah, they were. He was 91, 87, 71 off, and then 90, and that was it. So he's been on 4 times. Again, great player, franchise legend. But even if your peers think you're no higher than the first best player in the league at like the peak of your career, I'm sorry, you're not Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, neither is LaShawn McCoy. I know you posted that as well. LaShawn McCoy's not home.
Yeah, LaShawn McCoy, the reason I did is because LaShawn McCoy was asked about Edelman, and he pretty much shrugged it off, said no, and then went on to say the same thing more or less that we did. Really good player. But as for me, although they asked him, so I shouldn't word it like that, he feels that he is, and he's a fringe guy. Don't know. But let's say McCoy does retire, which he could. Now that's another guy who's higher on the pecking order than Edelman, who retired in 2020.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a tough year to retire. Everyone should just wait a year.
Yeah, and then Brady and Gronk say, okay, yeah, we're done.
Yeah, and Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, Peterson says, I'll hang on another year. Gore, somebody just picks him up. Because, well, why not?
It's crazy. I'm sorry. I was thinking, the Patriots have signed all those free agents. With Edelman retiring, they still have $15.5 million of the cap space. After everyone they signed. They still have $15.5 million. They could go sign whoever they wanted. I don't think they want Frank Gore. I think that James White's still not signed somehow. I think they'll probably get him back. But, how do they still have $15.5 million of the cap space?
I will give them a bit of advice. Do not use it to sign the guy who picked a fight with Aaron Donald. Did you read that?
Yeah. Yeah.
If Aaron Donald wants to bully me and take my whatever bottle of Cristal or whatever the hell it was at the club, thank you, sir. Would you like another? That's the only right answer.
Yeah.
That's it. I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, that was a good elevator down. I think we both agree that I said, 2 years ago now, in order for Edelman to make the Hall of Fame, he needed a bunch of postseason performances that put him either right behind Rice. I mean, because Rice is still
way ahead,
50 catches ahead of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not he's second place, but it's not he's second place to Secretariat, right? He's that far behind. He's still way ahead of other people. But he would need another 2 good runs in the playoffs in order to get there, and he didn't get it. Last years ago, they lost in the first round. He had 3 catches. Last year, they didn't make the playoffs. That was his opportunity. Now he's retired. I don't think he has anything. So that's a good elevator down. Mm-hmm. And again, neither of us are dumping on Edelman.
No,
he's just not a Hall of Fame.
No, just for this particular purpose. And my biggest argument against him isn't necessarily what he accomplished. It's what other people accomplished ahead of him.
I understand. Just the way, can I just bring up, speaking of people who aren't Hall of Famers, did you see that Joe West won his case against Paul LaDuca this week?
No, I did not.
So Paul LaDuca said on a broadcast that so here's what he said. We were playing a really tight game against the Phillies, and Billy Wagner comes in from the bullpen. I used to go to the mound every time and like, what's going on? He's like, hey, Joe's behind the plate. Set up a couple more inches inside. I was like, are you kidding me? Joe hates me. He's like, no. Joe loves me. I go, it's giving me the quarter hour day. He's like, don't worry about it. He literally throws 10 pitches and strikes out 3 guys. Joe rings up all 3 guys. 8 out of the 9 pitches were at least 3 to 4 inches inside, not even close. Guys are throwing bats and everything, and Joe walks off the field. I get back to the clubhouse. I'm like, what the hell just happened? Wagner just winks at me. I'm like, what's the secret? Like, Joe loves antique cars. So every time he's come to town, I lend him my 57 Chevy so he can drive it around, and then he opens up the strike zone for me. So that's what LaDuca said. And the 2 of them were teammates on the Mets from 06 to 07. And they played the Phillies many times, but Joe West never umpired a game behind the plate during that time. And West sued for defamation and won $500,000 plus interest this week of that. The interesting thing was this, other than that's interesting. West is going to retire at the end of the season. He's 68 years old. During the middle of the season, he's going to become the umpire who's umped the most games in Major League history during the season. He says that some of this money is going to be needed to help repair his reputation because this allegation is what's keeping him out of serious consideration for the Hall of Fame.
Oh, only that one. Okay.
Just that one. So, now that Joe West has won his defamation suit, is he elevator up, elevator down, or he doesn't know where the elevator is?
I don't even want to acknowledge him in the building that has the elevator.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny, like that they're bringing up the fact that Joe's expecting to get the Hall of Fame, and West accused him of fabricating the story and consequently harming the chance of making the Hall of Fame. Joe, you're not making the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, because that's really going to increase your value at Comic-Con conventions.
Charge more for his autograph when people send him a baseball card.
Exactly.
So,
all right. So we didn't have a lot of people who passed away. Joe,
we don't. We had one big name. I guess I'll save him for the end. We did have one actor who passed away, Joseph Ceravo, character actor best known for playing Tony Soprano's dad in the flashbacks on The Sopranos. He passed away at the age of 66. And we did have a couple. The Beige Mistress was active. We lost a Hungarian sports shooter from the 1960 and 64 Summer Olympic, Imre Simko, who passed away at the age of 82, and Istvan Bersi. I'm presuming there's a lot of consonants in a row there, so I'm presuming it's Bersi, Berczi. I don't know how to pronounce that. Hungarian gymnast who competed in 8 events in the 1972 Summer Olympics, passed away at the age of 75. So, sticking with the Olympics, we actually did lose gold medalist Eckhard Fosser, who won the gold medal in bobsled at the Winter Olympics in Calgary, 4-man bobsled for the Swiss. So back in 1988, it was part of the 1983 like championship gold medal winning 4-man bobsled team as well. So, and actually overall World Cup bobsled champion of the world in 85, 86. So he passed away at the age of, 69 earlier this week.
Do you think when they bury when they bury a bobsledder, do they just sort of like use like the bobsled and he's just sort of like crouched?
And they just push it down and then like off a cliff.
Yes, just a thought.
Actually, funny you should bring that up. This reminded me something. This week, Maine legalized the law allowing for the Viking funeral if people want it, where you put them in a boat and shoot a flaming arrow and set the whole thing on fire.
You know, the amazing
Maine actually passed a law allowing that this week.
I don't know. I throw out a random joke and you actually come up with some obscure fact. Who says we can't do segues? Come on, sponsorship.
Yeah, my goodness. This is a state that has way more moose than people. It just seems like a bad idea because there's a lot of that state would burn very, very easily. Anyway, we lost a couple of record producers this week. Bob Porter, who is a member of the Blues Hall of Fame, responsible for the reissues of many classic blues and jazz recordings, inducted to the Blues Hall in 2009, passed away from esophageal cancer at the age of 80 this week. So he was he basically reissued. He was the reissue producer for Savoy Records and Atlantic Records, and worked for a whole bunch of other labels, and was very, very responsible for the restoration of a lot of the early 20th century blues music. We're talking the teens and 20s and 30s. He was responsible for the restoration to make sure that it was captured. So he passed away. A very, very important, another one of those people behind the scenes, very, very important, actually very important in our cultural history, honestly, just making sure that stuff got preserved. From Wellesley, Mass., passed away at the age of 80. We also lost Quentin Claunch, who was another record producer, one of the early guys down in Muscle Shoals, one of the early Muscle Shoals guys. Born in one of my favorite cities in the United States, Tishomingo, Mississippi, and played with lots of bands down there. He recorded with Carl Perkins and Charlie Feathers, Wanda Jackson, all sorts of folks like that. He started his own record label, High Records and Gold Wax Records. He did both of them, but specialized mostly in Southern and gospel music. But one of the early Muscle Shoals guys passed away at the age of 99. He would have made 100 if he made it to December. So lost him as well. Also lost the former head coach of University of Maine. His head coach through this year, Red Gendron, passed away this week. He was he died while golfing up in Maine after the season was over. So he was only 63, but he was the head coach of Maine for the last 8 years. He was assistant on the championship team that Maine had in '93. Assistant on for Yale when they won in 2013, and was a Stanley Cup winner. Got Stanley Cup rings as an assistant with the Devils, both in '95 and in 2000. He passed away very suddenly. The current goaltender of the Bruins, because all our goalies are sick, Stamen, was in tears after his first game because Gendron had passed away. And then finally, the biggest name, I guess, who passed away this week, Basketball Hall of Famer Bobby Leonard, Bobby Slick Leonard, best known as the coach of the three-time ABA champion Indiana Pacers, won 70, 72, and 73. The number 529, which was his number of wins as Pacers coach, is retired by the Pacers. He played with the Lakers from 56-61, and then the Chicago Zephyrs, well, originally the Packers, then the Zephyrs, from 61 to 63. But point guard, Also won a national championship in 1953 as a member of the Indiana team that won that year. So one of the real characters in basketball history, one of the most important coaches, probably the most important coach of the ABA, honestly.
Definitely most
passing
successful.
away. Yeah, at the age of 88. So that's what we got.
We actually have one more, arguably.
Oh, who was it?
Well, Bernie Madoff.
Oh, yes. Yes, the defrauder of the Wilpons,
right?
The Mets.
Yeah, no, and exactly which essentially made the New York Mets, a baseball team in New York fucking City, a cash poor team. Because the Wilpon was one of, I think it was both of them were investors with Madoff. And would it not? And there was a couple articles where it's like, okay, we've now officially closed the book on this awful time.
Well, his brother is still in jail, and I would like to point out that with the entire financial meltdown and all the bull crap that went on with that financial meltdown, the only two people who went to jail were the Madoff brothers.
Well, I just meant the Mets turned the page, not necessarily.
Oh, the Mets. I'm sorry.
not the sorry. Reflective of the entire United States economy and culture at large. Just the Mets.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Madoff passed at 82. He had asked for clemency because he had kidney cancer, I believe, and was told he had less than 18 months to live. And they went back to the judge who sentenced him to 150 years in jail. And the judge is basically like, I didn't sentence you to 150 years in jail because I expected you to ever leave jail. Like you're dying in jail. That's the purpose of 150 years. So,
generally, when I don't have anything nice to say, well, I can't really say I always sort of do that. But, yeah, I'm not a believer in religion, but if there is a hell. Sorry, Bernie. I don't know what else to say. Because it wasn't just the rich who we bilked out. And even if it was just the rich, it's still a shitty thing to do.
Yeah, it's one thing if you're Robin Hood and not Robin Hood, the site that's stopping people from trading.
Yeah.
It's like actually Robin of Locksley, who you're robbing from the rich to give to people who don't have stuff. If you're robbing from the rich to give it to yourself, you're not any better. So
that leaves us, I guess. I guess it leaves us with our final segment. Evans presents. Well,
actually, we have one other thing.
Oh.
We have one other thing. The Canadian Football Hall of Fame had their class.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Mostly the biggest name on that for our purposes is Marv Levy. So he becomes, I believe, the third person to be in both the Canadian Football Hall of Fame and Pro Football Hall of Fame. Warren Moon's the other. Who's the other one?
Bud Grant.
Bud Grant, thank you. I was going to say Bud Adams, but I knew that wasn't right. So
definitely not Bud Adams.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Bud Adams has never been to Canada.
Oh, probably not. Yeah, so Marv Levy, he coached the Alouettes twice to a Grey Cup win. Only there 5 years, but hey, 2 Grey Cup wins. Yeah, so yes, the CFL Hall of Fame. Hopefully there is a CFL league, and I hope they don't actually merge with the XFL. Don't do that.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Besides, Edmonton has become the Elk. I got to get the Edmonton Elk gear now, as opposed to since the Eskimos are no more. So
whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, the other people on here, just for the record, are Will Johnson, who is a sack, a guy who had a lot of sacks in the league. Nick Lewis, Nick without a C, so just N-I-K. Doug Mitchell as a builder, Orlando Steinauer, and Mike Walker, and Don Wilson. I can't really tell you what any of the rest of those guys did because I'm not familiar with them. So, but Marv Levy was the biggest name out there. So, Anyway, all right. So now we can get to my thing here.
Oh, whoa. This is not the best produced podcast in Hall of Fames for nothing.
It's a low bar, but we're clearing it. So my good is someone who I don't normally give a good to. And only good because it's undoing one of their stupid rules. And it's actually the NCAA. So the NCAA apparently is going to allow players transferring schools in college football and basketball to transfer without having to sit out this season.
Yeah, that was always a stupid rule. I never got that.
But the weird thing was it was only for football, men's and women's basketball, men's ice hockey, and baseball. Any other sport, you could just transfer schools without having to sit out. And those you did not. Those you had to sit, unless there's a hardship.
Yeah, so basically if it was a sport that actually made the school money, yeah, this makes no sense at all, how they would decide for those sports. Football is your biggest moneymaker, so you're going to sort of like not have a player participate for a year? I don't get it. But if we just signed the bowler from Kent State to Bowling Green, yeah, that's okay. I don't get it. Well, I guess they didn't get it either.
Bowling Green has a better. Bowling Green is my wife's alma mater. I will say their bowling team is far superior to Kent State. Well, I have no idea.
With the name,
and now you're just ripping on Kent State because that's where Julian Edelman went. You're back to ripping Julian Edelman.
I'm just saying, if your name is Bowling Green, I would think just in the name alone. Yeah,
Bowling Green State University. Do you know? Here's a trivia question for you. Do you know who the football coach was when my wife went there? Or the starting football coach, and she went there. She graduated the same year I did in 2001.
Ric Flair.
Same sort of idea, but the current coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Urban Meyer, was a coach at Bowling Green when she got there, and Rob Blake was a hockey player there. So, I think he had So anyway, but yeah, Bowling Green, they are responsible for the colors of the Cleveland Browns. I think we've been through this before, right?
We have. Yeah, you mentioned that before.
Yeah, so the Cleveland Browns ultimately got their colors from a stylish women's hat that somebody saw on a streetcar in 1910. So the president of Bowling Green saw a stylish women's hat he liked. I like the colors of brown and orange on it, so he made the Falcons brown and orange, and then the Browns, when they started playing for the preseason, practiced at Bowling Green and basically took the colors from Bowling Green. So essentially the Cleveland Browns colors are from a hat from a woman who's probably been dead for 75 years. So anyway, so that's my good. It's good that they got rid of the stupid rule. It's stupid they had the rule in the first place, but at least it's being eliminated. It's not punishing players. It's one of those things they couldn't really do if they're going to give players the ability to profit from their own likenesses. They can't make them sit and therefore open themselves up to a lawsuit saying, I would be making money, but you're forcing me to sit for no good reason. Right? Mm-hmm. So this is preemptive more than anything else. Very much like, by the way, the MLB moving the All-Star game out of Atlanta was also preemptive. Because just think of how everybody's reacting to it right now, and the players may have actions or refused to go to that and play that game. So they were just preemptively moving out of Atlanta because there was just going to be a firestorm. They're the firestorm then get blowback from the right-wing things was nothing compared to the blowback they would have gotten from sponsors and players on the other end. So they still should have moved the game to Milwaukee since they were going to be honoring Hank Aaron in Atlanta as part of the All-Star game as opposed to Coors Field, but that's Major League Baseball. Not making good decisions. Which leads me to the bad, which is Major League Baseball not making good decisions. So, first of all, the Red Sox today swept both ends of a doubleheader against the Twins. The first game was delayed because of the protests over the latest police interaction with a black man who ended up being shot over an air freshener. So that game got delayed, and then they ended up playing a doubleheader today. But the MLB is trying to tweak its rules in order to make themselves more with it, I guess, in the way things are going. And they're trying to solve problems that they themselves have created. There's nothing wrong with the sport of baseball. There's something wrong with the way the sport of baseball is being run. So the reason I bring up the doubleheader today is the Red Sox won 2 games in 14 innings today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with a new 7. Yep.
Yeah, that is stupid.
I'm not a fan of it myself.
Why is a baseball game, just because you're playing 2 the same day, somehow now 22% shorter? Just because it's like, if you're talking like a sport that cares so much about records, that's dumb. But that's still not the dumbest thing to do. So right now in the Atlantic League, they're testing out 2 rules.
Yeah.
Here are the 2 rules that they're going to be testing out.
I thought this is where you were going to go. I saw that they're moving the pitcher's mound back.
They're going to move the pitcher's mound back a foot. Now, they did this once back in 1893. And the batting average at that point for the league was 245. And moving it back a foot to its current thing, moving it to 280. It just in the next season. But the problem, and part of this is I was listening to the Cubs broadcast briefly. I went out and got my first COVID shot today. So I have the first part of the 2-shot thing for the COVID vaccine. I got that today. On my way back, the Cubs were playing the Brewers, and I was listening
one ahead of me.
Talk about it. Yeah, I'm the last one out of the people in my family to have the first one now. But literally, of all the adults, I'm the last person. So we just opened up on Monday. My wife and sister-in-law managed to get hers Saturday, and my wife's Sunday, because they had pre-signed up for information and were told they could do it. But I ended up getting mine today. But anyway, on the way back, I was listening to Ron Coomer talk about the moving the pitcher's mound back, and he had a ridiculously good point. And I've brought this up before. One of the players on the Red Sox is Bobby Dalbeck, who is the poster boy for everything that's wrong with Major League Baseball. And again, the Red Sox are 9-3, so it can't be that bad, right? But with having the analytics come in, everyone is doing swing angles, where everyone's trying to hit home runs. Like, if this were happening in the 80s, Louis Rivera and Spike Owen would be, trying to crank him over the monster, right, with these uppercut swings. And what has happened is pitchers have gotten to the point where now they're getting so good they're consistently throwing high 90s to 100, and the uppercut swing takes longer to go. And because of that, fewer balls are being put in play, and there are way more strikeouts. Do you know last year there were more strikeouts than hits? Do you know how many times that's happened in Major League history?
I didn't even know that ever happened until you just said that.
It's happened 3 times. It's happened 3 times. The 2020 season, the 2019 season, and the 2018 season. The only 3 times in history it's happened are the last 3 years. Strikeouts are up 33% since 2007. Teach people, I'm not going to claim I was any very good baseball player. I was a very good fielder. I was not the greatest hitter. But when I do those things, I never try to home run because I didn't think I could. I just try to hit liners over and over and over again. Nobody hits liners. Everyone is swinging for the fences with these uppercut swings. Just putting your barrel on the ball and putting the ball in play makes the game more interesting. You don't need to move the mound back. You need to get out of and I'm very pro analytics normally, but analytics have just frick ruined baseball. Nobody steals. Nobody hits double. Nobody hits triples. It's just basically everybody standing around waiting for a ball to go 420 feet. And it's boring. It's boring to watch. They don't need to move the mound. They need to change. If they want people to watch the game, I don't care what the numbers say. You want people to watch your game? Put the ball in play more. How do you put the ball in play more? By having people not trying to hit a home run on every single freaking pitch. Bobby Dalbeck last year struck out 54% of the time he was at the plate. 54% he struck out. He also led the team in home runs. Great. It's not fun. That's not the answer. The answer isn't moving the mound. The answer is getting back to making baseball exciting again. Make more balls in play, which have more opportunities for catches or more opportunities for the ball getting thrown around or more opportunities for a guy taking an extra base. Things along those lines. That's what makes baseball fun. Sitting around waiting for a homer does not make it fun.
Creating a league of 100 Dave Kingmans is not exactly the recipe for...
Dave Kingman doesn't strike out enough for this league. We're talking Rob Deere. We're talking I'm trying to think of who struck out the most I can think of growing up. Rob Deere was always the one who I'd think, we're going to strike this guy out. And again, I have a foul ball for Rob Deere, so he has a special place in my heart. But yeah, there's just it's awful. So baseball, the other rule, by the way, is that I actually don't mind the other rule as much. I think it's interesting, and it would actually make the NL purists at least model them, which is that you lose your DH when you take out your starting pitcher.
That could be interesting.
I don't mind that one. I don't mind that one as much. The idea there is to try and keep the starting pitcher in longer. So we're going to an all DH all the time situation here soon. It's just going to happen. I know it happened last year. It's going to happen. But having the situation in which taking your starting pitcher out means that you lose your designated hitter brings a whole new level of things, and I have no problem with that rule. I actually think that's an interesting strategy decision that won't affect AL fans and should make NL fans happy. So that one I'm okay with. But yeah, just the moving the mound back. Just teach people to hit the ball line driving. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think nothing's going to come out of that one, I hope. What is ugly this week?
I am going to go very niche here, my friend.
Okay.
There is almost nothing uglier right now in sports than officiating in CONCACAF. Now, I know we are very far down, but I've been watching, really for the first time ever, a bunch of CONCACAF Championship League games.
Okay.
So there's a Champions League in Europe. There's one in South America. There's one in Asia. There's one in Africa. And then all the champions get together and have a tournament, technically for the World Club Champion, which almost every time is won by the European team.
Mm-hmm.
So we're into the round of 16 right now, and the refereeing is going to get somebody killed. So there's a team from Costa Rica named Saprissa who is playing, or they were just eliminated by the Philadelphia Union tonight. So they played their first game. It was all two legs of a home and home. They played their first game, last week sometime. And one of their players came in and completely cleaned out the Philly player to the point where he was 6 feet in the air, tumbling backwards. It was one of the dirtiest slide tackles I've ever seen in my entire life. He got a yellow card, was not thrown out of the game. So what happened tonight? So Philly won that game 1-0. Tonight they're up 4-0, or they won 4-0, but they're up 1-0 again. So Priest's at the end of this. The ball comes out, and the guy comes in so hard. The player for Philadelphia Union, Jamiro Montero's whole ankle went the wrong direction.
Yeah.
One of the dirtiest slides I've ever seen in the middle of the field, completely unnecessary. And again, you have to understand, I'm a player who played decent level amateur soccer for a long time without ever getting a card as a defender, which is maybe something about me that I don't want to hurt anybody. But that was another yellow card. It was almost a second fight. Toronto lost their first goal today on an offside call. The guy was at least 5 feet onside at the time. They don't have VAR because they don't have anyone who knows how to run VAR. The only countries that have it are Mexico, the U.S., and Canada. So none of the other ones have it. But someone is going to get seriously injured, and their career is going to end because the referees can't control these games.
Where do they get the refs
and the
from?
Bias from CONCACAF leagues around the various leagues. So MLS, Liga Mexico, all the ones through the Caribbean, even Guyana. Guyana and Suriname, even though they're in South America, are part of CONCACAF because they'd have no shot against the rest of those, against the rest of the South American teams. So they're from all over Trinidad. Like anyone that has a league, that's where they're from. But they're legitimately, someone's career is going to get ended on one of these things because they have no idea what they're doing or how to handle it. And now this is maybe whatever bias, but there almost always seems to be a bias towards Mexican teams. So whenever a Mexican team is playing a U.S. team, whether they're playing a Central American team, it doesn't matter. Almost every call goes their way in almost all these matches. And it's been that way for years and years and years. This is actually the best the MLS has ever done. There's a chance that the Final Four could all be MLS teams for the first time ever. But it's ridiculous. People are going to get injured. They need to figure it out. They need to clean it up. They need to stop this competition because it's just not worth it. It's insane. What Saprissa has gotten away with in those two games, because I saw most of the first game. I saw parts of the game tonight. Is borderline like Martin McSorley criminal.
That's a pretty high level of criminal.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's a pretty high level of criminal, and I just learned also too that you were the Lady Bing winner in your soccer league.
I definitely was a Lady Bing winner. Yeah, I never scored a goal for my team. Actually, I'm legendary we had a guy come on for his first game, and 5 minutes into the game, he had a ridiculous volley and scored a goal. It came running back. I'm like, dude, you just passed me on the all-time scoring list, and my entire team laughed. I was definitely the Lady Bing winner. I've never in my life been carded. I should have been red carded once when I was 17. But I should 100% have been red carded, and I didn't get carded in that. And then one of the players of the other team put me in the hospital, which I kind of deserved. I had taken it was probably the worst thing I've ever done. I took his brother out, and that kid's knee bent backwards. And so his brother was on the team and jumped on my Achilles. And if you told me that someone had blown off my lower leg, I would have believed you. It was the single worst thing I think I've ever done in my entire life. So,
you just had like a snap there?
We were playing a team. We only had 9 players, I think, for part of the game, and then one of our guys got injured, so we're down to 8 against a team of 11 with subs. And we were only losing 5-3. And it had been a tough, hard foul game the entire time, which is why our guy went out. It was like 5 minutes left in the game, and the ball went out of bounds, and I went to pick it up, and the kid who had been guarding all the game flipped the ball as hard as he could in my face when I bent down to pick it up. So I legally threw the ball in directly at him, and he trapped it with his leg, and I came in complete side his hip planted. And just absolutely took him out. I should have been thrown out of the game, 100%.
I'm going to look for that on YouTube.
No, YouTube did not exist when we were that old, my friend. We're talking. This is 1996. Oh. There was barely an internet. I had an AIM screen name and no email. So it's the worst thing I've ever done. And his brother, legitimately, next time I came near the ball, jumped on my Achilles with both of his cleats, I was told. And the game ended because we didn't have enough players anymore after I got injured. Fortunately, I had a 3rd-degree bruise, so he didn't actually rip anything. But I was on crutches for a few days and then back the next week. So there you go. The worst thing I've ever done. Admitted it.
That would be a great... God, that's the worst thing I've ever done. No, we're not going to talk about some of the worst things I've done. I've admitted to enough on this show.
Worst thing I've ever done. That's at least the worst thing I've ever done in sports. People may have opinions on other things I've done that they have different things, but that's by far the worst thing I've ever done in sports. So, yeah. So, by the way, there was actually, though, I will say, the single most ridiculous red card I've ever seen in my life happened in a game between Ukraine and Northern Ireland in, I believe, women's Euro qualifying earlier this week, where the ball was like going down the middle and the Ukrainian defender could have just gotten it, but instead of trying to get it, she veered directly towards just ran away from the ball, ran right into the Northern Irish forward, and just like elbowed her right across the breast and just completely knocked her out. And then got off screaming at the ref when she got red carded, like, what did I do? It's just go look it up. You're just like, how could you possibly think you were not getting thrown out of the game after that? So she could have just gotten the ball and kicked it. No, she just let the ball run and just took out the player who was 15 yards from the ball at the time. Just hell of it.
Was it the Irish player who did it or the Ukrainian?
No, the Ukrainian player took out the Northern Irish player.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was ridiculous. I watched it. They're like, there was on, because I follow soccer Twitter. People are like, this is maybe the most obvious red card anyone has ever seen. And I'm like, how obvious can it be? I'm like, oh no. Yeah, she wasn't within 20 yards of the ball when she hit the Northern Irish player. So
that's okay. I got to find that.
Yeah, it's good. So anyway, so that's my good, bad, and ugly.
All right. So with that closes off another show. I don't have a sound effect for that. I don't think we need another one. My 3 lame ones. I don't know. Our licensing fees are getting pretty high. That's very true.
I'll leave with this. I've just sort of discovered a new band with the help of WXRT here in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend you take a look and check out if anyone who's listening has a chance. Called Lake Street Dive. They're originally from Massachusetts, but they are freaking good. So if you can find them, they have a great song called Hypotheticals. If you can find it, it's well worth your time. So
there you go. After you watch a Ukrainian woman take out a Northern Irish woman, not on a date, I guess, the way I sort of phrased that, check out this band.
There you go. Hi, man. Good show. We kept it short. I like it.
All right. Sounds good. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you all next week.